Many of you were quick to notice the hidden message within the latest Apex Legends System Override event poster. The darkened letters in this poster read, "Don't believe Hammond." I think we're seeing a developing story happen live over the course of Season 4, and this message might be the start of it. If my theory I'm about to share is correct, Hammond may have waited a very long time for this day to come, and he is about to start something that might just change the universe, or for some, end it. I want to delve deeper to find out what might happen and what it means for the story of Apex Legends. I want to explain more about who Hammond is, his relationship with the Apex games, and why we might not be able to believe or trust what they have to say to us. I'm going to start with the facts and backstory behind Hammond Robotics, and then we'll get into a theory that might just set the precedent for the future of the Titanfall and Apex Legends universe. So who is Hammond? He is the man responsible for kickstarting one of the biggest interplanetary corporations in the frontier. It started with his first company, Hammond Engineering. This company essentially allied with other corporations and they formed the IMC to take space exploration to new levels. Later, as tensions grew across the universe, the IMC's focus switched from exploration to war and defense, and Hammond Engineering changed their direction too. They switched their name and branding to Hammond Robotics, and they were responsible for creating all sorts of war robotics and technology designed for defending the IMC. The whole story is pretty in-depth, and you might not understand it unless you've explored the Titanfall lore religiously, so I'll get through all of the important details in this one video so that you can understand. It's very important I explain the backstory because it's going to help set the tone for what's happening in Apex Legends right now. I'll take you through the timeline that explains what all this means and how important Hammond Robotics has been throughout the story of Titanfall and Apex. First, here's a very crucial piece of information that helps us to kind of understand the scale of this timeline. This is taken from issue 3 of the Outlands Journal, which was dropped around season 1 in real life. It has an interesting insight about Hammond. We have an exclusive interview with Ransin Mandalay, a resident of Talos who claims he is Heinrich Hammond, the father of the frontier, now at the ripe old age of 650. What evidence does he have to support this claim? Could he be telling the truth? I very much doubt that this kooky old man is telling the truth, but the important bit here is the age and the name Father of the Frontier. For comparison, Revenant is 288 years old now, and we know how bitter he has become. Now imagine a 650-year-old that was responsible for essentially creating the universe we know today. Everything in the frontier was available thanks to Hammond's technology. We don't know how the war went, but we know the IMC were technically defeated, which means Hammond lost too. So yeah, it's easy to imagine how hell-bent he might be after losing 650 years of hard work. Don't understand? Don't worry, I'll explain it all with my timeline. I'll go over everything. Whilst the birth date is unknown, Hammond Heimlich was expected to be born somewhere in the 21st century. If the 650 years is correct, his birth date may have been 2083. He started a company called Hammond Engineering, which was at the forefront of space exploration at the time. The company became insanely successful thanks to their efforts in creating space navigation, which helped humankind explore planets nearby to Earth. Hammond created Titans, which were used for farming and resource collection, and whilst the creator isn't credited, the IMC later developed jump drive technology, which allowed them to travel further into the farthest reaches of space, which we now know as the Frontier. With Hammond being dubbed the father of the frontier, I think he was very involved in this technology. The planets near Earth were named the core systems, but the core systems were mostly uninhabitable, which meant the frontier was an excellent space for exploration because it was densely packed with human habitable planets. Moving on to the 22nd and 23rd century, we're not sure on the exact numbers during this period, but we can assume these events take place during the 22nd and 23rd century. During this time, the IMC Corporation offered up funding and support for anybody willing to move to the frontier to start a new life. As you can imagine, moving light years away to start a new life on an unexplored planet is pretty scary stuff, so interest was pretty small. The IMC removed their initial incentives, but those first settlers were enough to spark interest, because it wasn't long before life in the frontier thrived. Settlers moving to the frontier built cities, outposts, and started civilization across hundreds of worlds. After seeing this huge influx of new settlers, the IMC believed that their hard work in exploring and founding the frontier shouldn't go unpaid. So the IMC tried their hardest to visit planets in the frontier to enforce their own rules, or cause havoc to anybody that may try to resist. Remember, Hammond was amongst the leaders of the IMC, essentially, so he very likely believed the frontier was the fruit of his labor. Moving on to the 23rd century. During this time, we can imagine that the IMC were developing new technology, creating all sorts of new exploration techniques, and slowly pushing out more war-related tech to defend the land in the frontier that they believed belonged to them. This means weaponized titans like the Ogre, and maybe even the Atlas, Strider, Iron, and plenty more. Hammond Robotics also created Spectres, Reapers, explosive robots known as ticks, and well, just tons of other dangerous stuff. To fight against the growing suppression, the frontier people formed their own military group known as the militia. Not everybody was involved, but a lot were. Tensions between the IMC and the militia grew, and we can assume the IMC worked together to research new war tech. We can assume the arms race here was at an all-time high. Technology advanced very fast during this point, and lots of research went into new experimental technology. A new division called the Ares Division was formed to focus on creating new experimental tech that may help the IMC win the war. This included a planet-destroying weapon known as the Fold, based on ancient alien technology, and also phase technology, the same Rene Blasey explored, who we now know as Wraith. However, other IMC branches took different routes. Vincent Dynamics developed simulacrums. These were digital backups of an individual's memories presented in a robotic body. Revenant is a simulacrum, and the earliest backup of his memories was dated in 2445, which is 288 years before the current time of 2733. Hammond Robotics helped to supply robotic parts for simulacrums at the time. This explains the H painted on Revenant's hand. So it seems clear to me Hammond, scared of death, scared of losing his hard work, chose to upload his own memories to a simulacrum too. And that is why, after all of the war-torn efforts, Hammond Robotics still remains as a sponsor in today's Apex games. Or maybe, with all of that money, he found some kind of fountain of youth. Throughout Hammond's history, he has kept quiet, rarely showing his face, and nobody ever knew how or when he died, with many rumors suggesting he was still alive. I still strongly believe Heinrich Hammond is still alive today, and he is at the forefront of all of Hammond Robotics' new decisions. But why did Hammond Robotics sponsor the Apex games? What was their purpose? Well, of course, they paid a lot of money to the Apex games organizers to install and advertise their brand new Planet Harvester, designed to pull resources from a planet. Who knows what purpose Hammond Robotics has with this technology? Perhaps the name of the 4th season will explain it: assimilation. The absorption and digestion of food or nutrients by the body or any biological system. The giant harvester is essentially assimilating planets. But there's another meaning for assimilation: the process of taking in and fully understanding information or ideas. And that may be what we're doing right now with this theory video, understanding the truth behind Hammond Robotics. Despite their claims as being this really nice, caring company for the people, we know their past. We know that's not true. So they're sucking all these resources away, and now on March 3rd we're about to see the System Overdrive event go live. And I think these skins are a bit of a hint towards what Hammond Robotics really wants to do with the Apex games. Read through this description again. Please join us for the System Override limited time event, brought to you by Hammond Robotics. As we continue to make outstanding progress in the field of mechanization and cybernetic enhancement, you'll be the first to go hands-on with our latest cutting-edge prototypes. So to me, it seems like Hammond Robotics wants to test new developments in their AI and cybernetic technology, perhaps similar technology used for the simulacrums. We already know how much of a killing machine Revenant can be, and they could use the arena as a perfect way to train the AI amongst the most ruthless killers in the whole Outlands. And once the AI has enough testing, and Hammond Robotics has pulled enough energy from who knows how many planets in the Outlands, Hammond may just set out to unleash a new army of robotic beings onto the Outlands, and maybe even the frontier, to claim back what he truly sees as his own land, his own work that he has tirelessly fought for 650 years. This is huge, and I cannot wait to see how the story unveils. I'm super hyped. All of this information has come from the Apex Legends loading screens, lore information that that they've posted on the website, and also the Titanfall and Apex Legends wikis. If you want to check any of the sources that I've based this information on, please check the description. What are your thoughts on this theory, and do you have your own opinions? Share them below. I'm very curious to know what you all have to say. I'll see you in the comments. Cheerio!